Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. What if everything you think you know about the creation of Eve is based on a mistranslation that has persisted for centuries? We've always been taught that Eve was made from one of Adam's ribs. But what if that's not the whole story? Imagine a scenario where every detail of a narrative has the power to shape cultures and belief systems, all because of a simple misunderstanding. Could it be that if this were understood differently, our views on gender and human relationships might also change? Join us as we investigate the original Hebrew text to uncover the truth. God did not create Eve from a rib. Hebrew texts reveal the truth of Eve's creation. The traditional version of the story asserts that God created Adam first and then made Eve from one of his ribs. This account, found in Genesis 2:21-22, has often been interpreted as a divine justification for gender roles, placing women in a subordinate position derived from man. The idea that Eve emerged from Adam's rib has been widely used to support the notion that women are secondary to men, perpetuating a hierarchy that persists to this day. However, what if the word rib is the result of a mistranslation? What if the original Hebrew text reveals an entirely different story, one that challenges the patriarchal interpretations that dominate our culture? By re-examining the meaning of the word and its context, we may discover a narrative that promotes equality and unity between the genders, rather than reinforcing divisions. Join us as we explore how a simple translation error influenced centuries of thought and how the true message of this passage can teach us about the value of both men and women as equals, created to coexist in harmony. Let's uncover the truth behind Adam's rib and reveal how this new perspective can transform our understanding of one of humanity's most important stories. In Hebrew, the word zelah appears over 40 times in the Old Testament and, curiously, is never translated as rib in any other context. In almost every instance, the term means side or lateral part of a structure or building. This usage is consistently confirmed in various biblical examples. For instance, in Exodus, when describing the Ark of the Covenant, it says, "He made 4 rings of gold for it and fastened them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 on the other side." Exodus 25:27. Here, zelah is translated as side, not rib. Similarly, in 1 Kings 6:5, zelah is used to describe the side chambers of the temple, located against the walls of the main room and the inner sanctuary, forming a structure around the building. This consistent usage of the term suggests that translating zelah as rib in Genesis 2:21-22 may not be the most faithful to the original meaning, and that the word might actually refer to something closer to side or lateral part. The consistent use of zelah to mean side or lateral area in various biblical contexts reinforces the idea that translating it as rib in Genesis 2:21-22 could be an interpretive error. This mistake becomes even more evident when we consider that the Bible uses specific words to describe parts of the body. For example, the Aramaic word for rib, al-in, appears in other biblical texts, such as in the book of Daniel. In Daniel 7:5, al-in is used to describe ribs in the mouth of a bear. "And behold, another beast, a second, like a bear, rising up on one side, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth." Daniel 7:5. The use of the term al-in for rib in Daniel highlights the deliberate choice of a different word in Genesis 2:21-22, where zelah is used. If the intention were truly to indicate rib, it would be more logical to use the more precise term al-in, which was already recognized for that body part. This discrepancy suggests that translating zelah as rib in Genesis may not accurately reflect the original meaning of the text, and it's more plausible that the term should be understood as side or lateral part, suggesting a more symbolic and egalitarian creation of man and woman. This distinction is of utmost importance, as it suggests that Eve's creation from a significant and essential part of Adam reinforces the idea that she is not only an equal, but an indispensable counterpart for humanity. Now, imagine the profound implications that would arise if the word Zela were interpreted as side rather than rib. Instead of envisioning God taking only a rib from Adam, we might imagine that he took a lateral portion of Adam's body, a more substantial part. This interpretation would transform the traditional view, indicating that Eve was not created in a secondary or inferior manner, but as an equal, with the same essence and dignity as Adam. In this way, Eve's creation would not be a simple act of derivation, but an expression of the necessary complementarity for humanity, reinforcing the principle that both man and woman were co-created with a common and undeniable purpose. This reinterpretation shifts the focus from a small, seemingly insignificant bone to a significant part of Adam's being, emphasizing equality and partnership between the two. The mistranslation of Zela as rib has had far-reaching consequences over the centuries. The idea that woman was made from a small and irrelevant part of man was used to justify patriarchal structures. This interpretation reinforced the notion that men are the primary beings and women, secondary. This belief infiltrated religious doctrines, cultural norms, and social systems, shaping the way gender roles were perceived and applied throughout history. This misinterpretation affected various cultures, denying women the same rights as men, treating them as property, or imposing subordinate roles upon them. Even today, remnants of this belief persist in certain traditions and practices. The idea that women are somehow inferior has been used to justify their exclusion from leadership positions, educational opportunities, and decision-making processes. It is important to consider the historical context in which this erroneous translation was perpetuated over the centuries. Patriarchal societies frequently turned to religious texts to validate their structures. The belief that woman was created from a rib of man, a small and seemingly less significant part of his body, served as a convenient justification for maintaining male dominance. This narrative was used to support the idea that women are naturally inferior and should occupy a subordinate position in society. Now, by analyzing the true meaning of Zela, if interpreted as side, it suggests that Eve was created as an equal companion taken from Adam's side, symbolizing equality and partnership. This interpretation aligns with the idea that both men and women were created in the image of God, as stated in Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female, he created them. This new understanding challenges the traditional hierarchy and promotes a vision of equality and mutual respect. It suggests that from the beginning, men and women were intended to stand side by side, as equals, sharing in the responsibilities and blessings of life. This interpretation highlights that both genders are essential parts of humanity, each contributing unique strengths and perspectives. By recognizing that Eve was created from Adam's side, we can reinterpret the creation story as a narrative of partnership rather than hierarchy. This perspective fosters a more inclusive and egalitarian view of gender roles, encouraging the equal valuation of men and women's contributions and mutual collaboration to build a more just and balanced society. Language is powerful, and the words we choose shape our understanding of the world. Accurate translations are essential to convey the original meanings of ancient texts and preserve their authentic messages. A misinterpretation can profoundly distort our understanding of these texts, influencing our beliefs, practices, and social structures over the centuries. The translation of Zela as rib in the creation of Eve is a clear example of how one word can transform our view of gender roles, contributing to the perception of women as subordinate to men. However, by examining the biblical context and the original meaning of the words, we find numerous examples that reinforce the idea of equality between men and women in the scriptures. These accounts highlight the importance of interpreting texts within their context, recognizing the intrinsic value and dignity of all people. A powerful example of this is Deborah, the prophetess in the book of Judges. Deborah is described as a prophetess and leader of Israel, holding a position of authority and being respected for her wisdom and courage. She not only served as a spiritual advisor, but also acted as a judge and military leader, guiding Israel through times of conflict and challenges. Deborah's story demonstrates that women can occupy vital roles in religion and social leadership, standing as a strong example of the strength and capability of women highlighted in the Bible. The story of Ruth and Naomi in the book of Ruth reveals a relationship of support and unconditional loyalty between two women amidst adversity. Ruth decides to accompany her mother-in-law, Naomi, on a journey back to Israel after a period of famine, committing to care for and support Naomi despite her own challenges. This account highlights resilience and feminine strength in the face of difficulties, underscoring the importance of women in strengthening their families and communities, playing essential roles in emotional leadership and support. In the New Testament, Mary Magdalene stands out as one of Jesus' most faithful followers, accompanying him throughout his ministry and witnessing crucial moments in his life. Most notably, she was the first person to witness Christ's resurrection and to bring the message to the disciples. This event underscores the vital role of women in the early Christian community and shows how God chose them as bearers of the message of hope and resurrection, emphasizing the importance of their spiritual contributions. Priscilla and Aquila are mentioned several times in the New Testament as notable leaders in the early Christian church. Priscilla, in particular, is recognized as a teacher and collaborator with the Apostle Paul, contributing significantly to the spread of the gospel and the strengthening of faith in the early Christian communities. The mention of these figures in the scriptures highlights the fundamental role women played in the spread of Christianity, acting as teachers and leaders alongside men, a clear demonstration of equality of roles. Revisiting the true meaning of Zela as side rather than rib invites us to explore traditional interpretations and the richness of ancient texts. This quest for deeper meanings helps us understand the context and complexity of the scriptures, revealing dimensions and messages that may have been neglected over time. Interpretations like this encourage us to revisit the values of equity and partnership present in the Bible, showing that men and women were created in God's image and called to work together, with equality and mutual respect. The story of Adam and Eve, then, becomes more than an ancient account. It reflects the values and beliefs that shape our view of gender, equality, and community. Through this rediscovery, we see that biblical texts can serve as a foundation for building a more just society, where every person is equally valued and mutual respect is promoted. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey of discovery. If this video was enlightening, we invite you to share it and subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the deep and hidden meanings in biblical stories. Also, be sure to watch the suggested videos on the screen to keep learning. May God bless you and see you soon.